All right, guys, we're going to dive into our comprehension goal for the week. As we've read the science fair, we were supposed to be thinking about those important story elements that we see in all fictional stories, whether it be realistic fiction, fantasy. Anytime we're looking at a story, you should be able to find these elements. All stories have them, okay? And it's important as good readers we're able to identify these important elements. They help build our comprehension or understanding of the story. So just as a review, all stories will have characters. Characters are who the story is about. It could be people, animals, creatures, but the characters in the story is who the story is about. The setting is the where and when the story takes place, okay? Setting could be at school, at the beach, on an airplane, at night, in the summer, okay? Those are all examples of where or when stories could take place. All stories will have the characters encounter some type of problem. The problem is something the characters want to fix or change or figure out, okay? For example, a boy being lonely and not knowing anyone, that could be a problem that he wants to change or fix, okay? Down at the bottom, the poor little dog tangled in the kite strings. That's definitely something he would want to fix or change. So again, in all stories, we'll see the characters encounter some type of problem. The characters will also work through the events in the story to come up with some sort of solution. The solution is when the characters figure out how to solve or fix their problem, okay? For example, the lonely boy, if he makes friends at school, then he's not lonely anymore. He's fixed his problem. That would be a solution, making friends at school. The poor dog tangled in the kite strings, his solution could be his owner comes and helps him, okay? So his problem is fixed. He's no longer tangled in the kite strings. So as we read stories that are fictional, we should see that the characters figure out their problem. They solve their problem somehow. And then, of course, all fictional stories have a plot, okay? They have a sequence of events. They have a clear beginning, a clear middle, and a clear end, okay? It's the storyline. The events in the story are important. They have to be told in the correct order or the story is not going to make any sense. So the plot or the sequence of events is extremely important when we look at fictional stories, okay? So we're going to practice identifying these important elements with a different story. And then you guys are going to create a story map identifying these elements for our Story of the Week Science Fair. So for our practice, the story we're going to listen or read is called The Art Contest. Tracy loved art. Her school was planning an art contest, and Tracy wanted to create a great piece of art for her entry. This year, the theme was Celebrate Nature. Students had to be creative as they thought about how to produce art about the topic. Tracy loved the topic, but she was upset. She could not decide which type of artwork to produce. I could paint or draw or make a sculpture, Tracy thought. What should I do? The art contest was not just about drawing a picture or making a mosaic. Students also had to report on what they made. Tracy had to write her name, teacher, grade, and the title of her artwork. She then had to describe her piece of art. She needed to fill out 3 charts about the type of art being presented: painting, drawing, sculpture, mosaic, collage, other type of artwork. The materials used to create the artwork: paints, markers, pens, paper, clay, ceramic tile, other materials. Items needed to display the piece of art: tacks for hanging on the wall, tables, special lighting. The charts would be educational because they would show how much thought and preparation went into creating the piece of art. Tracy thought about what kind of art she liked to do best. She thought about the theme. Tracy decided she could create the best piece of artwork about nature by creating a painting. Tracy went to work hard on her painting. Finally, she was finished. On the very day the artwork was due at school, the contest judges were their art teachers, Miss Clark and Mr. Claybrook. They would judge the entries and make the presentation of a certificate to the winner. While Tracy waited for her painting to be judged, she looked at all the impressive pieces of art created by the students. There was a collage of brightly colored leaves. she saw a vivid drawing of a volcano just as it started to erupt. The artist explained that the volcano showed how nature could be powerful and beautiful. When the judges arrived at her painting, Tracy said she had chosen to paint the rain. She wanted to show how a vast collection of colors is present in one simple act of nature. The paint on Tracy's picture blurred and swirled like rain itself. She had used every possible color of blue and gray and purple. The painting looked magical. At the end of the contest, Tracy knew she had made the right choice about her artwork. She held the winner's certificate and smiled. So now as we think about the important elements from that story, we're going to fill them out on our story map. This is a story map that can help us organize our thoughts as we try to identify these important elements of any fictional story. Now, the characters in this story was Tracy. Tracy was the main character. She's really the only character mentioned until we hear about the art teachers. When we think about characters when we're identifying important story elements, we really just want to think about the most important characters or the main characters. And in this case, it's definitely Tracy. She was the focus of the entire story. Without Tracy in the story would be totally different. So Tracy is our character, or who the story was about. The setting of the story, now that one's kind of tricky in this case because throughout the story it never really says where the story is taking place. So we have to kind of be detectives in this case and find clues that can help us make a smart guess. Now we know this was happening, or that her school was planning the art contest, and it talked about her art teachers. Okay, so these kinds of clues make me think that the setting of this story is probably Tracy's school or her art class is where most of the story is taking place. Okay, the problem. What problem did she encounter? What happened in the story that Tracy wanted to fix or change? Well, if you remember, she was upset when she couldn't decide what to do for her project. So that was a problem for Stacy. She could not decide what to do. She had a problem that she needed to fix. Okay, so as we read on and continued with the story, we saw that the solution to Tracy's problem was that she thought, not tough, but thought very carefully about her options. She thought about all the different kinds of art she could possibly do. She carefully considered all of her choices. And she finally decided that she would do a painting. That's what she was good at. That's what she enjoyed doing. So after carefully considering her options, she decided to do a painting for her project. And she knew she had made the right choice at the end of the story when she won the contest. So that is the solution to her problem. That's how she fixed her problem. Carefully considering her options and choosing a project to do. Now the plot again is the sequence of events. Okay, so when we think about the story, the events of the story are what actually happened in the story. Okay, events are just the things that happen in the story, and in fictional stories like this, the events follow a certain order. It's very important that the events are happening in a certain order for the story to make sense. Good readers can retell the plot. They can think back and go, okay, in the beginning of the story, Tracy learned that her school would be having an art contest with the theme of Celebrate Nature. In the middle of the story, Tracy was upset when she couldn't decide what to do for her project. She carefully considered all of her options. She decided she could do the best piece of artwork about nature by creating a painting. In the end of the story, Tracy presented her project to the contest judges. She knew she had chosen the right project when she won the contest. So again, this is the plot, the sequence of events. What happened in the beginning, what happened in the middle, and how the story ended. Good readers should be able to retell the major events from the story or retell the plot. So that is an example of how we would fill out a story map for a story. We've done one together. You guys have heard the story of the week, the science fair, read aloud. So you can get your textbooks out at this point. The story is on page 399. You have your own copy of the story map. We want to know, Can you identify the important elements of the story and complete the story map just like the one we did together? So that is your assignment. You're going to get out your textbook, turn to page 399. Okay, you can look through the story for evidence as needed. You can reread the story. Use the textbook to help you identify those important elements and complete the story map for the science fair. We will check our answers and go over our story map together when we're finished with reading groups to make sure everyone kind of was thinking about this and was on the right track.